Hi, I'm Jim with Pour the Juice, and in this video, I wanted to talk about my 5 most underrated whiskey brands slash bottles. I say it like that because I do have a couple here that I want to talk about the bottles specifically. It's not the brand. I don't think the brand is going to be underrated by any means. But some of the bottles that those brands carry certainly are. But I do also include at least two that are the brand specific as well. And I should probably just get into it because trying to explain it's going to make it seem a little odd from my standpoint to make this video with these specific bottles and brands. So yeah, I'm just going to get into it. So these are not in order, and obviously it's my opinion, but the first bottle I'm going to choose on here is actually going to be Larceny Barrel Proof. Um, I don't think I've talked much about Larceny on this channel, but I'm actually a pretty big fan of the base Larceny as well, or as I was in the past at least. I thought it was, pretty much on par with Buffalo Trace for a long time. Um, and back then, when I was first getting back into whiskey, Larceny Barrel Proof kind of became, a whiskey that I couldn't find. It was it was almost, unicorn-esque for me. And a lot of that was because I was living in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania stores aren't that great. So Pennsylvania stores weren't getting Larceny Barrel Proof. But eventually I did. Eventually I found some Larceny Barrel Proof, and it kind of blew my mind. It's a fantastic whiskey. And then I got a couple more batches, and then, it was, one of these was this B523, C923, ended up being two of the top 3 whiskeys on Fred Minnick's Whiskey of the Year list. And so I started taking those whiskeys, and I was like, well, let me see if they really are that good. I'm going to try to do my own blinds, and they crushed everything. They were better than Russell's 13. They were better than Stags I had. They were better than anything that I had in my collection at the time. And I couldn't believe how good they were. But they really excelled when you're comparing them to each other. And I'm saying this to get to the point that overall today, Larceny isn't viewed as a top-notch whiskey for whatever reason that is. A lot of people overlook it. A lot of people say they don't like it personally. Obviously, I am not that person. I thoroughly enjoy it. But I do think it's interesting that I went from kind of one of those whiskeys that was sought after, you couldn't find anywhere, and now it's everywhere. Every store I go into, there's Larceny batches from 2024 sitting on the shelf, let alone the 2025 batches that are out now. And because of that, I do think it's severely underrated. This is great whiskey. At least for me, it's high proof. This one is 124.4 proof. It's a little tiny bit of the weeded funk. It's Heaven Hill. It's really almost everything that I want in a whiskey. Just great, great, great whiskey. For $65. I could have put a lot of other big brands here, and I do have some big brands coming up. And you could say the same things about like Elijah Craig barrel proofs, how they're sitting on the shelf these days. But I still think Elijah Craig gets way more respect than what Larceny gets, which is why Larceny is, at least in my top 5. I don't know if it's number 5 or number 1 or whatever it may be, but it's in my top 5 for most underrated bottles that I own. Try to get it out of the camera view. All right, which one should I go with next? I'll go with the brand next. This is going to be another big brand. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this one. But to me, all of their bottles are great in the brand. But people tend to not put them in those higher echelon categories as some of the greatest whiskey out there, and I'm not sure why. Um, this is a killer bottle, this Knob Creek 10. The Knob Creek picks that are coming out now, that are the cast strength, they're amazing. The one that I got from Benesh Liquors is one of the top whiskeys of the year for me. And in general, anything you get, the 12 is a monster for a 12-year whiskey. Literally, anything I pick up from Knob Creek is delicious. It's amazing. Maybe it's just not exciting anymore, or maybe it never was too exciting, but for the juice in the bottle, it's some of the best you could find. And I feel like it's very overlooked. So that's another reason why we have this brand as one of my top 5 for most underrated. Next, I'm going to go with a bit of a smaller brand. They're not small, but it's not going to be one of these monster brands that I just mentioned. And I'm going to go with Blue Note. Like I mentioned, Blue Note is a smaller whiskey brand. I believe it's out of Tennessee, out of Memphis. And these Blue Note uncuts, juke joint whiskey, uncut, unfiltered, are phenomenal. I'm pretty sure they're pretty cheap too, like under $60, and this one's close to 120 proof. Maybe it is 118.6. This one happens to be a store pick for the Lehigh Valley Bourbon Group, which is local. So we got Blues Booze on here. It's a fantastic pick. But Blue Note is, that's been kind of lauded as the poor man's stag. I would almost say it's more like a poor man's, not a poor man's. I hate the term poor man's. I'm a poor man. But poor man's, yeah, I guess, what else we got back here? Maybe an Old Forester barrel proof pick. It's just rich. They get them up there in proof. I don't know what the ages are on them. It's just good whiskey. And it's really good for the price. Like I said, they might be $60. They might be $45. I don't know the exact price on them. But they're one of the best buys you can find on the shelf. And occasionally I see people talking about them, but it's not enough. This isn't going to be whiskey that, gets in the top 10 of the year list for anybody. But if you're looking for something good to drink for fairly cheap and you like high proof, I would recommend this every single day. And it's one of the reasons why it's in my top 5 for underrated. Next bottle, it's going to be a specific bottle for a brand. Actually, the next two are. This is going to be the Russell Single Barrel. So I did a comparison video. This was a couple months back. And it was the Russell Single Barrels versus the Russell Store Picks. And it came out 50-50. In my mind, the juice is just as good in these as you can get in a barrel pick, except these are significantly cheaper. I see people go crazy over those store picks. And most of the time, they're just okay. I honestly think one of the store picks, I have 2 store picks here. One of them is like mediocre at best. And I have a regular single barrel that whoops it. It might be this one. One of my single barrels is amazing. I think it is this one, actually. It's just crazy to me. I guess it's because with the store picks, you could see where the whiskey comes from and when it was bottled and how old it is. But in my mind, you're picking up one of these for nearly half of what one of those costs. And in my opinion, the chance of getting great whiskey out of it is higher. Yeah, it's just a no-brainer to me. And it's a no-brainer why it's on my underrated list, my top 5 underrated list for whiskeys. Because people just walk right by this one. And then the 5th one on my list, this is, people are probably going to debate all these that they're not underrated. Underrated to me something has to have some popularity to be underrated. If nobody knows about a whiskey, it can't be underrated. It's just unknown. So these obviously are all going to be known whiskeys that I just don't think are getting the respect that's due. And this is going to be number one on that list. And it's going to be 1792 Foolproof Picks, specifically the picks. 1792 Foolproof bottles themselves are great. They're a great value, $45, $49. But some of the picks you can get are some of the best whiskey I've had. And this bottle is one of them. This is the pick from Benash Liquors. This is probably 2023 they picked this, or they got it in their store. And this is one of the best bottles that I own, and I'm milking it. I'm doing my best to milk it as long as I can because I love this bottle. And I have a few other ones, and I've tasted a ton of them. I have two others on my shelf that are also phenomenal. I've tasted probably 6 or 7 that are all great. They're all better than the normal Foolproofs. So I don't know what 1792 is doing. Maybe they have their own profile that they want to use for the normal Foolproof, and they're just doing picks of things that don't fit in that. But what doesn't fit is phenomenal. And so, I do see people going after these occasionally. I don't see it enough. And for me, for some of the best whiskey on the market, in my opinion, it should have much more flair in the market, much more interest in the market than what it currently has. That's just my opinion on it. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you think it does get all the attention. I just don't think so. And if it does get any attention, it deserves more. But yeah, that's my video on my top 5 underrated bottles and or brands currently that I own. If you have any that you can think of that you think are severely underrated, you want to say, Jim, you should pay more attention to this bottle. You're talking about all these other bottles that everybody knows about. You should pay attention to X, Y, or Z. Let me know in the comments, and I'll pay more attention to them. Yeah. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe. Thanks for watching. Cheers.